Three men with revolvers all pointed at each other.
Absolutely. So this is a very big story by Tim Shipman. It was the Spectator Summer Party on Thursday night, and I'm afraid there was more drama in it than on Love Island. There really was.
Less love, perhaps.
Yes, less love.
Warm Prosecco.
Yeah, well, actually, it was chilled champagne, and there wasn't that much sun, so everybody knew what they were doing. But it is extraordinary. Interesting, Tim Shipman is a leading political editor. He wrote a book called All Out War, and it looks like all out war has broken out within the Conservative ranks. It's fair to say that the leadership contest to succeed Theresa May is now on. And every camp is briefing against each other. People are briefing against David Davis. There are smears against Boris Johnson. But I'm afraid the person who is most in the firing line is the Chancellor, Philip Hammond, who I know you've got on your show later on today. And people are leaking against him about the Cabinet. We heard about...
So in specific terms, there were two moments in Cabinet, weren't there, last week, where he allegedly said something, went straight to the press.
He basically said two things. He said that he thought that public sector workers were overpaid, and that for some reason women couldn't drive trains. Now this has come off...
He denies this, I should say.
He does, but I just want to say, look, we've also just had this week a rather unseemly row in the Conservative Party about the use of the N-word, and I'm afraid the Conservative Party are showing themselves to be quite out of touch. Now, his team say, look, none of this is true, all of this has been overhyped. But, you know, Tim Shipman, who is the political editor, has basically... he took to Twitter last night and he said he's getting this verbatim from people. He says, this has been one of the most bizarrely entertaining weeks I have had as a political editor, leaky Cabinet, seething rivalry. And I have to say, things are so bad for Theresa May, and I'm sorry to do this, Ian Duncan-Smith, but they are so bad that in the Telegraph there's a story saying that this is reminiscent of Ian Duncan-Smith. That's how bad things are.
I was the Prime Minister at the time, though, so...
But Ian, you did go through a very torrid time when people were sniping against you, and you know what it's like, as it were, to be Theresa May. So what's your advice to her this morning?
Keep going. The honest truth is about all this, and this is the point I want to make, and this makes great cover, I know it does, but there's a big divide in the Conservative Party at the moment on another level, and it's between some of them in the Cabinet, it appears, and the rest of the backbenchers, because it's quite interesting that a lot of the new generation and everything else come in are absolutely seethingly furious with what this is representing at the moment, because, you know, their view is they want Theresa to get through the Brexit stuff. She's already said at some point she'll then step down. And their view is none of the above. At some point, maybe somebody else will step through. So
this is a generational question. These
guys
are possibly too old to be the next leader.
All I know is that some of the people that I see running around the place, I won't know names, it's reminiscent of the same people running around when I was leader. So all I would say to my colleagues to them is, just for once, shut up, for God's sake, and let everybody else get on with the business of governing. There's not going to be a leadership election. I absolutely promise you, lay money on that.
Why not?
Because there is no mood in the Conservative Party in Parliament for a leadership election. They know what the problem is. There's an unusual thing happening at the moment. It's called Brexit, and it has a timetable to it, and you cannot afford that timetable to be broken into by a Conservative leadership election. So we have to get through that first and foremost. So there's a chance here to do their jobs. As
an optimistic and ardent Brexiteer yourself, do you look at this stuff and say this kind of cabinet dispute could actually wreck our chances of a good deal?
Well, it certainly doesn't help matters, but I will say certainly that, you know, the classic summer stuff, want to get through this, get through the conference, get forward. And my general view is that all of this stuff, when it comes about, does nobody any good and everybody a bit of harm. So, you know, we have lots of stuff that we might want to talk about with regards to Labour's policies. But in the meantime, we don't get onto that so often.
Just before we do.
I don't think we can just take for granted that there will not be a leadership contest.
Well, of course, you'd like to see one.
Absolutely.
We'd all like to see one.
You guys
I just think when there's so much briefing going on, can these men be restrained from their ambition? I don't know.
It's called the backbenchers, and let me tell you now, I categorically tell you right now, that there is no support for this to take place. Honestly, I mean, I've been through this, I've seen it before. You know when there's a real groundswell rumbling. There is not
Ian, back
in there.
In the day, people thought you would survive the conference.
No.
Just say,
in the middle of all of this. Well, I've told you, I'm not going to talk about what comes out of a private cabinet meeting.
5 of your colleagues have talked.
Well, they shouldn't have done, frankly, because cabinet meetings are supposed to be a private space in which we have a serious discussion. I'm the Chancellor.
So why are people going for you in today's papers? Is there now a fight for the leadership of the Conservative Party underway in Cabinet?
Well, I certainly hope not.
And it appears to be the case.
If there is, I'm no part of it. I think my colleagues should focus on the job that we've been elected to do. This government will be a stable government because people understand that there is a crucial job that needs to be done. They'll support us while we get on with that job, but they won't indulge us if we start turning our attentions elsewhere.
This is not the vision of a united cabinet. It really sounds as though someone's got it in for the Chancellor.
Well, I don't think anybody should be leaking cabinet meetings at all. I think that's thoroughly unprofessional. But look, what I observe every day in Parliament as I go about my business is a very united team of ministers behind the Prime Minister. Is that really what you observe? It's absolutely what I observe.
Are you part of this group of cabinet ministers that now seems regularly to be briefing against Philip Hammond?
No, I absolutely deplore leaks from the cabinet. I think my colleagues should be very quiet, stick to their own departmental duties, and I think that the public expect us to be disciplined and effective. Our backbenchers are furious, and the only people smiling at this will be in Berlin and Paris.
So why are they doing it?
I think there's too much self-indulgence, and I think people need to have less Prosecco and have a longer summer holiday.
They don't trust Mr Hammond on Brexit, though, do they?
I don't think that is true. I've had a very good working relationship with Philip Hammond. I read in the press we've got very different views. In fact, our views, if you listen to what Philip said this morning, what I'm saying, are very similar on issues like transition. I don't know where the briefing is coming from, but I do know it should stop because our colleagues on the backbenches do not like it.
But it is happening.
I'm afraid it is happening, and I think it undermines the position of the government in this massive negotiation that we've got. And we don't need an interim leader. We don't need an alternative leader. We have a very good, competent leader in Theresa May.
I understand that's you, but he thinks it's being done by your fellow Brexiteers.
Well, I don't know who's doing it, but I deplore it, whoever is doing it, and they should stop.
Okay.